save exactly 10% of my paycheck every month. And that goes into like a separate account, and that's just for like a rainy day, really, in case like I've got anything planned, like me and my friends are going on holiday later on this year, so that will be used for that, or it's good to have a pot just there in case you need it.
We've got a savings account, so if there's a float left over each month, that goes into there for a rainy day or an emergency.
Yes, as a family we do save money. We put a certain amount into our savings account at the beginning of the month, and that hasn't always been possible. When our children were little and we were paying a lot more for childcare, then money was tight, and so we weren't able to do that. But luckily now we are in that situation, and we decide how we spend our money. I'm a bit boring, and I've got a huge spreadsheet with everything on it, so I know when my bills are coming out, what's left in the account, and yes, so we do it like that. So each month I also have a budget for like how much I think I'm going to spend on the shopping, or me and my husband are going to spend on the shopping, and so yeah, we do it like that, and then I can see where I am against what I'm expecting to spend that month and what I've spent so far that month.
From my perspective, I'm almost 58 now, so saving will vary depending on your age, what you're looking to do, whether you're looking to buy a house and therefore you're saving for a deposit, or in my case, probably saving for retirement and managing my affairs. So actually, as a family, myself and my wife, I'm putting as much as I can into a pension and into an investment scheme, so that I'm ready to retire in 2 or 3 years or so. In addition to that, I do use ISAs because they're quite an effective way of saving and they're quite tax efficient. And I'm also encouraging my 2 20-year-old kids to also save in different ways, both pension and just general savings into ISAs if they can. But it's much harder when you're young, so they're both focused on saving for a deposit.
Yep, so we absolutely have a budget. We look at all of the household expenses, all of the things that the family need, all the expenses that absolutely must go out every month. That's all then sort of accounted for and paid for by things like direct debits, so it comes automatically out of our accounts. So we know that money is in the right place and it's going to the right places. And then anything that's left after that is then what we can use for our leisure, for our social activities and for family.
I have a spreadsheet which is literally is down to the penny. That's from spending for myself for so many years and having to know where everything is. So yeah, how do we decide? I just have a rough idea. Obviously we know what all the bills are, a rough idea of food even goes on there, and then we even have spending money. And then there's float money that goes into the savings. So yeah, that's quite sad, isn't it?
and needs and wants are really important, and again, depending on age, they'll vary significantly. So in terms of budgeting, I sort of know roughly what I spend each month, and we should have a surplus. I don't budget tightly, but I do recommend at a younger age in particular. So I recommend to my kids their budget, that they put some money aside into savings, to be that, car expenses. One of them's just come back from France, so he's living at home, so his budget's got more flexibility. But the other one's sort of sharing property in London, and they really do have to budget for their food, for their rent, and so on, and then they're spending money. But in my case, I'm aware I've got some flexibility because I've got some savings aside, so if we have a month that we spend a bit more, I've got the capacity just to fund that. But if we've got a month where it's a bit quieter, I will have a surplus at the end of the month. So I don't quite budget it strictly. I guess the one thing it's good to share perhaps is I think during COVID, quite a lot of people have spent less because we've not been travelling as much. We've not been going out to restaurants and pubs and so on as much. So that's meant that actually I've tended to have a surplus most months. And then what we've been doing is actually we've taken the opportunity of doing one or two things to the house. So we've put some built-in wardrobes in a couple of the bedrooms, and we've refurnished and done those things in the house. And that's coming from no sort of surplus income largely. in terms of some of our plans and some of the things we wanted to do?
I have an Excel spreadsheet that I keep that I worked out when I moved in, of like everything coming in and what everything going out would be. I kind of prioritize it just by things that I think are important. So like, for example, going out with my friends, and like I like to go out on the weekends and stuff when you were allowed to. That kind of stuff is more important to me. So I like to keep that big budget kind of as big as I can. And then I compromise in other areas so I can do the things that I want to do.
We just have a general pot of savings that we know what's in there, and then so all of our savings go into there, and then so we would just use, if we had a big expenditure like a holiday, or if we wanted to do something in the house, that would come out of that one pot, and we'd work out how much we can spend based on what's in our savings.
So we save towards short and long-term goals. So it could be short-term goals, a holiday, a particular thing that we want to buy, but also thinking about longer-term goals. So things maybe the children might want to do in the future, support that they might need, university fees. So we think on that sort of short and long-term basis in terms of savings.
So we've just exchanged on our house today. So the last lot of savings was for that. There's some extra deposit. Now it's for a chimney repair that it's going in there for, and then also obviously for holidays, although holidays are slightly different.
Sometimes. So I have two savings accounts. I have one which is just like a general kind of, if my like a kind of backup if something goes wrong with my house, or just kind of a spare pot of money if I need it. And then I have one that I keep, like if me and my friends have decided to go on holiday, then I'll keep that separate, and I'll kind of go through, kind of separate them.
I opened my first bank account, I think my parents did it when I was about 2 or 3. So my father worked in banking and got a bank account with Barclays, and I've had that account sort of ever since, really. It's quite strange. It has morphed into, starts as a child's account and then into a normal account. I have since then only opened one other, if I call it main bank account, which is with Metro Bank, who I work for now. I think in terms of opening bank accounts, I think it's making sure you look now. There are lots and lots of different options now compared to when I was younger, whether be they online bank accounts, be they more savings related, or just straightforward current accounts. My I suppose guidance and advice is, people now tend to have more than one account. When I was growing up, you'd have one account and maybe a savings with the same institution, and you would just stay with a Barclays Bank or a Metro Bank or whichever bank it might be. I think now we see an awful lot more people will have a perhaps main current account for, say, spending. They might have a separate bank that they use for saving because they get a slightly better rate. They might have online bank accounts. And I think it's important to look around and see what suits you. Some people will have an account because it gives them air miles, or an account because it gives them points and they can save up those points. And it is, and I still use certain credit cards and I clear them every month because I said earlier I don't like to borrow on credit card, but I will use a certain credit card that will give me points, and that's a bit like a bank account. So I think there's lots and lots of variety out there now, bank accounts, compared to what they used to be, and some of them will offer different perks and benefits. So my guidance and advice to a student would be, look at an account that suits you, your spending or your saving. And I think getting an account, we offer young savers accounts. So getting an account when you're young, you often have to have your parent on it sometimes. But getting an account, getting used to saving, used to using a debit card, online banking, and all those features is really important. And I'd recommend getting that. We had bank accounts for our kids when they were very young, 2 or 3 or 4, and encourage them to get into cards and be used to the bank account, rather than take cash and put cash under the bed or something, which is not recommended.
So it was a long time ago, but I think it was around the sort of the secondary school age. I seem to remember having the piggies in that West that you collected when you started a bank account, which might mean anything to the children of today, but it was an incentive for children to start saving. So I did start with my own bank account quite early and saving. And also I started a pension at age 18 because my thought was, well, if I've never had that money, then I'll never miss it. So if I start putting it into savings straight away, then it's never there for me to spend. And that's sort of the philosophy that we take going forward, that if it goes into a savings account and I haven't got it, I can't spend it. I think secondary school age is a really good time to start thinking about bank accounts and saving, and actually we've opened bank accounts for both of our children now who have their pocket money directly put into their account, and it's then up to them to decide how they manage that rather than asking us every week for another £5 and another £5. They have their budget and they have to decide how to spend it.
Well, that was quite a long time ago. I can't really remember. I'm assuming it was probably when I got my first sort of job at about 16 or 17. And when I was paid for those jobs, I worked in shops or waitressing or whatever, that would have been cash. I'd have been paid cash. But then I think as I probably got, a bit older and started to get paid monthly or whatever, that would have gone into my bank account. I'm assuming it was around then, so 17 or 18. I can't remember any issues, but I think I just went to the bank that my parents went to and opened an account there.
Food shopping, just on a card, but it's a current account. Some cash we have, but yeah, just mainly a card. But that's money that's readily in the account, so not a credit card, just a debit card.
So for paying for shopping and paying for goods and services generally, there are so many, compared to, again, going back, there were very few ways of doing it. You'd write a cheque or you'd pay cash largely going back in time. You might use a cheque guarantee card if you're old enough to remember those, but probably not. Many of your students won't. But times have moved on drastically now, significantly now, and people don't issue cheques, which was an old method of paying for goods and services. I think now if you're going shopping, the vast majority of the shopping, if I do it or my wife does it, is probably using either contactless or using the chip and pin on a debit card or credit card. So I use debit and credit cards quite a bit. For bigger items and for shopping, I tend to use credit card, but I'll always clear it off at the end of the month. And I use a credit card because it builds points, which is something I alluded to earlier. So I get a bit of benefit by using a particular card, pay it off at the end of the month and build up some points that give me a cheap weekend away or something, or a free weekend away even. So that's one way of paying for goods and services. Pre-COVID, I used to carry cash a little bit more and use it for small things. But I think during COVID, that's changed many habits. And if I draw out £50 of cash, I'll probably still have £40 at the end of the month. And I use very, very little cash now. And even for an item for £1 or £2, I'll just use a contactless debit card. I think as well as if you're spending, so if you're buying a large item, I touched upon, we were refitting a bedroom and we did all fitted wardrobes and we've done curtains and everything. But we bought a bed and they were offering interest-free credit. So we actually paid a deposit, and although we had the money, we decided to use what was being offered, which was interest-free credit for buying of this bed, which was quite expensive. It was well over £1,000 for a bed, and we're now paying that off by direct debit. So and it pays off over about 2 years. So I sort of budget and say, okay, that's going to cost us X over the 2-year period. We pay the deposit down. The money we had for that, we've just left in a savings account, because the institution we bought it from is quite happy to give us the bed on an interest-free credit. So then they pay by direct debit from your bank account. So once a month, an amount goes out, and it's just making sure then that you budget and be aware of that coming up, whether that's through your mobile phone, whether that's through you keep Excel spreadsheets, however you budget. But it would be important to make sure that you've got the money in the account before that debit comes out. The last thing you want to do is go overdrawn and not have the money in your account, because of the effect that may then have on credit ratings. And a lot of financial matters now are dealt with by computers, by artificial intelligence, by systems. So if you do make an error and you actually get checks bounced or direct debits bounced, or could be even worse, then that does start to affect your credit rating. And really important from a young age as best as possible to make sure that that's not the case. So keep an eye on your account, I would recommend, if you are using standing orders and direct debits?
So I split my expenses in half. So I have like my bills, which are all done by direct debit. They all come out on the same day of every month. That I can try to anyway. Sometimes you can't be as flexible, but I try to make all of them come out on the first of every month. And then physical bills that I have, like food shopping or things like that, for doing it.
Yeah, so I said that we use our credit cards to pay for shopping so that we can get the benefits of it. But one thing I would say to anybody is, if you're going to use a credit card, if you're not going to be able to pay it back straight away, then you have to be prepared that you could be spending like a quarter, like 25% extra than you would have bought that thing for originally. So if you were going to buy something for, easy maths, like £100 on a credit card, unless you pay it back straight away, that thing, because you bought it on a credit card, could end up costing you £125. So I think you have to think about that credit cards are great in some ways, like lots of things, but also there can be like hidden costs if you can't pay them back straight away. So it's and then those payments rack up really quickly, so you have to be really careful.
Yes, massively. Do not get a credit card, because just don't ever do that. No. Try not to get store cards. I know that's easy to say, but I think if you can just get a small job and save for what you need, you appreciate it more. And I think it affects touch wood, I've never been in that position, but I know friends that even at our age really struggle with not necessarily having any debt now, really good jobs, but historically have a really bad credit rating. They struggle to get on the mortgage ladder, and it can escalate out of all control. So my advice would be just try and have money in a current account and take the cash out maybe on a night out, so you know what you're spending, and ask for help. Don't struggle and don't not ask for help.
So really, I think it's really important to know what money you have, to see what's coming into your bank account, what's going out of your bank account, and to notice anything that's unusual. If there's a payment that goes out that you weren't expecting, or you get contacted, there's lots of text message scams out there asking you for payments. Just be very, very careful to make sure that they're from a reliable source, and if necessary, get parents to call the bank to look into it. But just look for things that are unusual, because there are a lot of people out there trying to defraud us, and we have to be very careful about that.
I think for me, separating things is always easier. So like, I have a bills account which I leave all my bill money in, and I literally don't touch it. And I just kind of let the direct debits come out. And then I put, at the beginning of the month when I get paid, I put my disposable income into a different account. So I know that like that's what I've got in that account is then mine for the rest of the month. I don't have to worry that there's like a direct debit that's going to come out of it or anything like that. And then I just split that accordingly, and I take out in cash what I need to, and then I just leave some in the bank in case I forget, or if I can't pay with cash.
Okay, so I guess some advice around finance and banking and using sort of debit cards, credit cards. Just be really, really careful, because however hard, and I'll come on to one or two examples, however hard a bank or HMRC or institutions are trying to protect and block scammers and fraud, the fraudsters are always trying to be one step ahead. So as much as we will be stopping, there's a new system now where if you type in a sort code and account number, you'll find on your mobile, in most cases, it will come up and say that they've detected that account number, sort code, attached to the name you've inserted, the beneficiary. That didn't used to happen 12 months ago. That's a new feature to stop fraudsters. But But the scammers are now working on something else. You know, banks have brought in second level authentication. So often if you're doing a payment to someone, it'll send a text to your phone, or if you're buying some goods on Amazon and you've not used that platform before, they'll send a text to you to your phone. And that's just the extra level of security to help. In terms of advice about just being very aware, if you ever get asked, if you ever get a phone call, and you may have had it texts or phone calls coming in from someone to say, "Hi, I'm your bank, I'm just checking out whether you've made this payment, a large payment over £1,000 is going out of your account today." The first thing you would do is immediately panic and think, quite often, I haven't paid that £1,000, blimey. Yes, no, that's not me, what do you need? And you immediately react because you get concerned that someone, you may have made a payment out, and you assume it's the bank who has called you. But quite often it's the scammer or the fraudster who has called you, and they're trying to then get you to give away your codes. What I would say in any instance like that, and the banks would encourage it, but if you get a call like that and you do think there might be something wrong or it's a fraud, tell that person, I'm going to call the bank back and I'm going to verify and check out who I'm speaking to. And the bank will not have a problem. Even if it's a real bank at the other end of the phone, even if it is your bank, they won't have a problem. You're putting the phone down, look at the back of your debit card, and then dialing the number on the back of your debit card, go through security and say that you've had a call to say that someone is withdrawing £1,000 or there's something going on your account that you weren't aware of. And that's not a problem. And as I say, even if it is the bank ringing you and it's legitimate, it's not a problem. So I would always think twice before taking a call. You know, texts and emails are another scam. An email, particularly in the business world, but also personally, you might get an email that looks as though it's come from a known beneficiary, a known party who you know, whether that's a store card that you might have, and you think, oh, it's an email from JD Sports, M&S, or whoever it might be, but it may not be. And believe me, the scammers will send an email, they'll put a hyperlink into the system, they'll say press on this to confirm a payment or press on this to do X. But actually it may not be M&S, it may not be JD Sports, or whoever the email purports to be from. One way of checking the email is to hover over the email address who it's come from on your phone or on your laptop. And that sometimes reveals an unusual email address of where it's come from. So just be really, really careful. And if you're not sure, the golden rule is always going to be, just check it out. And don't check it out by the number on the email or a number on your phone that's come through. Check it out using a number on the back of your debit card or a number on your statement that you might have. Phone them, go through security and check it out. There are lots of other sort of texts coming through, and but just be careful. Think twice, I guess. Stop, think twice, and don't be rushed into a decision, even though the phone call in or the text in might scare you because it's a large sum of money potentially coming out. Don't let that scare you. React to it, but don't react to it instantly.